Hi guys, welcome to Big Boy Travels. So, are your bags packed and you're ready to travel to Europe on your dream trip? Maybe you're going alone or with your family. There are a few tips that I wanted to give you before you embark on this journey so that your trip can be smooth like butter. So, let's get started with this video. In today's video, we will be speaking about the cost of your trip to Europe, what is the best season to travel in, and what is the best itinerary that you can follow. We will be also talking about a few important updates on the new EES system. We will also be speaking about what are the apps that you can download on your phone. And also, we will be talking about a few mistakes that Indian travelers make and how you can avoid them. Let's come to the Schengen visa reality for Indians. And to be honest, this is the part that I hate the most when I travel to Europe is applying for the visa. The Schengen visa, as you know, is one of the toughest visas to get. I'm talking about tourist visas, one of the toughest tourist visas to get in the world. And there is a lot of documentation. And I take help of my wife to do this. And I will give you a list of all the documents on the screen so that you can take a screenshot. Otherwise, you can always travel to the VFS website and find out what are the documents that you need for your travel to Europe. So now let's talk about choosing the right time to travel to Europe and the itineraries that you can choose, right? So the right time to enter Europe is actually any time during the year, but the summertime from June to about August is the most sought after time to travel to Europe, not only by Indians but by travelers around the world. But that has certain disadvantages, and I don't prefer to travel in that time. The next period is the shoulder months, which is, let's say, September to end of October or early November max, where the weather is a little better and the crowds are a little less, and even prices do come down quite a bit. So that might be the best time to travel to Europe. The next is choosing your itinerary. Now, this is again very subjective. Some, well known itineraries are France, Belgium, and Netherlands, or people go to Italy and Switzerland, or if you want to visit more Central and Eastern Europe, you can do Austria, Prague, and Budapest. But there are 29 countries that come in this Schengen visa, so you can choose any one of them. My only advice is try to group countries which are closer to each other. Don't travel from Western Europe to Eastern Europe and then coming back to Central Europe. That'll be consuming time and the costs will go up. So choose your itinerary as per what you like. The second tip that I can give you in choosing your itinerary is choose what you like. So maybe you like to be amidst nature. So choose your trip accordingly. Maybe you like architecture, maybe you like food, maybe you like the nightlife. So depending on whether you're a couple or a family and what your preferences are, you can choose the itinerary that suits you the best. Hey, I wanted to give you some hacks that you can use on transportation, both international as well as local transportation. So for international travel, my hacks would be: one is book in the seasons. So either from, let's say, uh, September to late October, or in March to, let's say, mid May. Right, these are the shoulder seasons normally. So booking travel during that time will be anyway cheaper than booking during the summer or the Christmas time. So that will save you some money. The next hack is I prefer traveling from Bangalore because I live in Bangalore. So I prefer traveling from Bangalore to one of the Gulf countries and taking a layover there and then traveling to the European destination. There are one or two advantages with this that I find. One is that the flight to Middle East or the Gulf countries are about usually around 4 to 5 hours, and then if there's a break for, let's say, 2 or 3 hours in your layover, and then you can take another 5 6 hour flight to Europe. So that gives you a little bit of a break in between, instead of taking a direct flight, which will be both costly as well as very tiring. Because I've taken those 9.5 hour flights also, and by the end of the flight, you get really tired. So that is my hack number two for you. The third hack is you don't need to book return tickets. you need to book tickets, let's say from Bangalore to Paris, and then you can book your return ticket from Rome to Bangalore. So you don't need to basically book it from the same city. You can book it from the last city that you're traveling to. That might also save you some money. The next hack is search in this website called Skyscanner. You can get a comparison of the flights that you're traveling in, and then always book from the actual website of the airline. Another point is please check the baggage rules, because certain times what happens is in these low budget airlines specifically, they do not include the baggage charges. So let's say you have a 20 kg bag that you need to check in, that itself can sometimes even double your expenses when it comes to booking that flight. So make sure that the baggage, the checked baggage, is also included in the price. Another tip that I have for the international travel is a lot of times what happens is, let's say I'm traveling to Switzerland, I want to land in Zurich or Geneva, right? But the flight tickets to those places might be expensive. So what you could do is you could search what are the airports around it. It might be in another country. Let's say, for example, you can travel from Munich to Zurich in like 2 or 3 hours. So look into flights which are going to Munich instead, and then from there you can take either a bus or a local train to travel. So that way also you might save a lot of money. Now let's talk about the EES update, which you should know about. The EES is nothing but the entry and exit system that a lot of European countries in 2026 are adhering to. In this system, the only thing that you'll have to take care is when you arrive in your first country in Europe. Let's say you're actually going to Germany, but you're landing in France. So, right in France, when your immigration is done, they have come up with an electronic entry and exit system. Now, this is different from ETIAS, which is more for European travelers, but as Indians, we have to adhere to the EES system where you need to go to a machine and enter certain details about yourself and maybe about your family if you're traveling with family, and that might cause a few delays, but it's nothing very big. You will get through the system very easily, and then you will go and talk to the actual immigration officer. Now let's talk about one factor that can save you literally thousands of rupees, and that is the VAT refund. This is not something that I have seen a lot of influencers telling you about, but I've personally experienced it, so I can tell you about it. The VAT refund is basically the value added tax, right? Like we have GST. In Europe, they have something called the VAT, or the value added tax. And what that basically means is when you're leaving Europe, so let's say you've taken a flight from Paris, from there you go to Rome, and then you come back to Bangalore. So at the last port of your departure, which is Rome in this case, you can actually apply for a VAT refund. So whatever shopping you have done there, uh, there is a certain VAT added to that, so you can get a refund of about 20 to 22% on those items. Now, not necessarily that you will get the full 20-22% of VAT back to you, but there will be certain processing fees, etc., depending on the country, but you will get about, let's say, 16-17% of it back. So let's say you have purchased a certain luxury good, like a expensive watch from Switzerland, or a leather bag from Italy, or a perfume, things like that, which sometimes cost lakhs of rupees. You can claim a VAT refund. Just be aware that you need to ask for a tax refund slash VAT refund form from the shop that you purchase these items from, and then fill it up and bring it to the airport along with the physical good that you have purchased. If you have checked it into your suitcase, then you will not get the VAT refund. So keep the physical item with you, keep the original bill and the VAT refund form or a tax refund form along with you, and then go to the right counter. Usually it'll be written there, tax refund or VAT refund. So go there, submit these items, show it to them, and you can get you can save thousands of rupees on this. So this is a very, very important point to keep in mind. Most of us miss this. Next, to make your trip a little smoother, I have also come up with some important apps that you should download on your phone before you go on the journey to Europe. The number one app that I'd like to speak about is Google Maps. This has helped me tremendously when I'm traveling. The second one is Google Translate. Now, this is something that you can do without also, because a lot of countries in Europe, they do speak English. They speak at least basic English, so you can manage. But in countries which are less visited, you can definitely use Google Translate to translate from the language of your choice to the local language. The next app that I use a lot when I travel is the XE currency exchange app. XE is a currency converter which you can use to convert the Indian rupee into the euro or the local currency of that particular country. The next app that I would download is the Trainline app. Trainline basically lets you choose the best trains to travel within. So you can put in your, again, your current location with the destination, and that will give you a comparison of all the trains that are available for you on that particular day. So you can take that particular train and also book tickets on it. Another great app that I find is the Omio app. Omio is OMIO. You want to use this for comparing various modes of transport. So let's say you want to travel from Paris to Zurich. I will use the app to know which are the buses available for the period times that I want to travel in, or which are the trains, or which are the flights, and which is the best mode of transport. I can choose that. And I can also download mobile free tickets, so that when the ticket checker comes, then you just need to show the QR code and you're done. Another similar app is Rome to Rio. So this is another app where you can compare various modes of travel from one destination to the other within the European continent. Another app that I find really helpful is the Bounce app. So Bounce is an app where you can find places to store your luggage in. So let's say, for example, you have checked out of your hotel at 11 a.m. in the morning, but your flight back to India is, let's say, at 10 p.m. So it's really difficult to carry your luggage along with you everywhere you go. So what you could probably do is you could store it in these storage facilities, and then roam around the city hands free. So this is good for that. Now for hailing rides, that is basically your taxis, you can always download Uber and Bolt. These are two famous apps. We have Uber in India too, so you might know this. But Bolt and Uber are two famous ride hailing apps. Now that you're already in Europe, you might want to see some of its famous sites. So for that, if you want to reserve guided tours, etc., what you could do is you could use the Klook app or your Get Your Guide app. These two apps are very useful. uh, Sometimes they'll give you great discounts, so you can use these to book your local travels. The other apps that you can use are actually some train related apps for specific countries. As you know, trains in Europe are much more expensive than the domestic flights. So you can use apps like SBB in Switzerland, SNFC Connect in France, the OBB app in Austria, etc. So, depending on which countries you are traveling to, do some research on what are the local apps that you can use to book trains. Hi guys, at the end of this video, let's talk about a few tips or tricks that I wanted to give you to make this European trip as smooth as possible. So the first thing that I want to tell you is don't try to cover too many countries on one trip. Most Indian travelers, especially first time travelers, make this mistake of trying to cover too many countries on their first visit to Europe. Europe is a large, massive continent. So I would say choose about 2 to 3 countries for your 15-day trip and cover them well. You will always get an opportunity to revisit. So don't try to do too much in one single trip. So the next tip I wanted to give you is please apply for your Schengen visa well in advance. I would say at least 3 to 4 months in advance, so that you're well sorted. The third tip that I wanted to give you is carry multiple payment modes. Don't rely on just one card, because sometimes it does happen that when you visit Europe, your card might not work, and that will put you in a lot of trouble. So have multiple modes of payment, maybe one debit card, one credit card, one forex card, and some cash, so that you're well covered. The next point is to check if there are certain holiday periods going on there, or what are the options on a Sunday. For example, when we had gone to Paris once on a Sunday, we had planned to go shopping, and everything was closed: shopping malls, museums, palaces, gardens, whatever you wanted to see was closed. The only thing that was open was your restaurants and a few cafes. One more important point that I wanted to tell you is keep digital copies of all your documents. So although you've printed out all your documents and you keep it with you, sometimes they may get lost. The next tip is to leave some room for the unexpected. Sometimes when we travel, we have planned everything out for, from morning to evening, but sometimes certain disruptions may happen. There may be a bad weather event or a natural calamity and things like that, and your trip might get a bit spoiled. So leave room, keep a buffer day for yourself, so that even if things go wrong, your trip is not totally spoiled. The next step is to book major attractions in advance. So let's say if you're traveling to Europe and you want to see the Eiffel Tower, or you want to see the Colosseum, or some important sites like these, you need to book in advance, because sometimes these attractions are booked out months in advance. So do make sure that your bookings are done. Otherwise, you may not get to visit these attractions, or you might have to pay 2 or 3 times of the original price to actually visit at the last moment. Another tip that I wanted to give you is to carry your basic medicines when you travel. So things like, for medicines for fever, cough, cold, a bad throat, etc. Carry it from here, because pharmacies in Europe are very expensive. Second thing, there is a huge control in the over-the-counter medicines, so you will not get certain medicines over the counter that we can easily get here in India. So you might have to then visit a doctor, take an appointment, and pay huge fees in that. So just carry some basic medicines with you to be safe. So now let's come to the most sought after section when we talk about planning a trip to Europe, and that is the budget. So I have put this into three categories. One is for a solo traveler, the second is for a couple, and the third is for a family of four with two adults and two children. So for a solo traveler, the visa, etc., would be about 10 to 12,000, including the VFS fees. Insurance will be about 1,500 rupees for a 15-day period. The next would be your hotels. Hotels can also be hostels for a solo traveler. So a hostel normally costs anywhere between 5 and 6,000 rupees average in most European countries. So if for a 15-day trip, that'll be about 75 to 80,000 rupees. Food will be anywhere between 20 to 30,000 rupees, again, depending on where you eat and what you eat. You can also eat at groceries, which will bring this a little down. Internal transport will cost you about 12 to 15,000 rupees, again, depending on how much public transport you take, etc., or how many cities you change over during your trip. The next is the attractions that are there that will easily cost you anywhere between 15 to 25,000. So again, this is an average I've taken out. The next is your miscellaneous expenses, which you kind of don't expect, might be about 20,000. So your total for a solo traveler would be anywhere between 2 to 3 lakh rupees for a 15-day trip. Next, let's talk about the budget for a couple. So let's say you're a married couple, and you're traveling to Europe on a 15-day trip. Your flights, etc., would be anywhere between 1 to 1.22 lakhs. So the second would be your visa, etc., which will be about, again, 25,000. Keeping in mind two people. This includes your VFS fees. Your insurance will be about 2,000 to 3,000 for two people. Your hotels. Now, this is something that couples spend on a lot because they choose hotels and Airbnbs, which are an average of, let's say, 10 to 12,000 per day. So for a 15-day trip, this can be anywhere between 1.5 to 2 lakhs. It's a major part of the total expense. The next is your food. Food will be about, let's say, 40 to 50,000. Keeping in mind that your breakfast is mostly covered with your hotel, but lunch and dinner would be quite expensive there. One way to again save here would be to buy food from groceries and eat that, or if you're staying in an Airbnb, then you can cook your own food. The next is your internal transport. This remains the same, just a two people cost would be about 30,000 rupees. So that should be your internal transport. The next is all the attractions that you see. Again, your cost will double because you're two people. So keep in mind about 35 to 40,000 rupees for the attractions, and the last being your miscellaneous expense, which you cannot plan for. So that'll be about I would say 30,000 rupees. So the total, keeping in mind for a couple, would be anywhere between 4 to 6 lakhs. Again, this is very subjective, but this is just to give you an idea of what you would spend. Now let's talk about the budget for a family. Family would be two adults and two children, right? One thing to keep in mind before I start this off is children under 5 get a lot of free stuff there. So mostly in internal transport, public transport is free. Entry to certain museums and attractions, etc., are free. So you might get a lot free. But anyways, coming to the budget, flights will be anywhere between, let's say, 2 to 2.2 lakhs, because you need to pay for 4 people. Check again here whether if you have young kids below 2, they might get a free flight. So just check into that. Your visa, etc., will be about 40 to 50,000. Insurance will be about 8 to 10,000. Your internal transport will be anywhere between 60 to 80,000. Uh, your attractions that you visit will be anywhere between 80 to 1.2 lakhs here. Um, and miscellaneous expenses will be about 30 to 40,000, things that you don't plan for. So total for a family would be anywhere between, let's say, 6.5 to about 10 lakhs, depending again on, what your expenses are and what kind of trip you're choosing, which countries. Anyway, thanks for watching the video, and I hope these points will help you have a really great trip to Europe. If there is some feedback that you want to give me, the comment section is all yours. Feel free to use it and let me know what I could have done better, or if I've missed any points, uh, you can mention that and I will try to make another video about this. Thank you so much and have a great day.